Okay. One of the big rabbis came to America before World War II. I think he came in the 1930s. The Moshe Feinstein, Rabbi Feinstein, big posek, Igros Moshe. And he lived in the Lower East Side, which was one of the biggest Jewish communities in the world then. And the shuls were, every single block had a few shuls, shtiblach. Everywhere you went in America, there were shuls back then. And however, the children all were sent to public school. There weren't too many yeshivas. And they all went to Hebrew school or Talmud Torah after school was over. But by and large, the young generation did not keep, the way of Torah, mitzvahs, keep Shabbos, kosher, or any of that, unfortunately. So they asked Moshe Feinstein, like, what did we do? Where did we go wrong? Back then there was a 6-day work week. The only day off was Sunday. And he says, and so every week, many parents, many a husband, many a father, they would go to work for a whole week. And then on Friday, they would leave work early to go home for Shabbos. And the boss would tell them, if you don't come tomorrow, Saturday, don't bother coming back on Monday. And every week they would have to look for a new job. And unfortunately, families had tremendous difficulties, hardships, trying to keep Shabbos. And many, many people persevered with Mesiras Nefesh, with the literal self-sacrifice. So he says, we work so hard. Where did we go wrong? How come our kids aren't following that same path? If we invested everything we have. Moshe Feinstein says, when a father would come home on Monday from his house, to his house, had just been fired from an next job, and he would give us hard to be a Jew. Schwer zu sein a Yid. Hard to be a Jew. Nebach, unfortunately, we have to be a Jew. We have to do this. What message do the kids get? It's hard to be a Jew. Why should I choose a hard life? But if someone come home, Simcha says, Baruch Hashem, Hashem gave me the opportunity to show my loyalty, my dedication to Him. And even if it's going to cost me a job, Hashem will provide for me somehow. And be b'simcha, then it would have had a very different outcome. That's, you could say, the message of today's Gemara. Shalom Aleichem, Rebbe Label. Today's Gemara is all about a shul. A shul is a place of life. A shul is a place of excitement, happiness. A shul is not meant for hespedim. Hesped is a eulogy. Just picked up some random pictures of different hespedim, different eulogies. Someone who passed away, a big Torah scholar, and they made a eulogy in his Beis Medrash, in his shul, thousands of people. A shul is meant to be a place where you have life, living. At the end of davening, after Aleinu, in the old Prince of Sidurim, there's a abbreviation. It says Kuf Yud. Kuf Yud means, some people say it means Kaddish Yatom, the Kaddish for those whose parents passed away. Some say it means Kinu Yayin, buy wine. Let's say Chaim. Someone who's davening is a very sedentary, non-animated davening. At the end of davening, the culmination is Kaddish Yatom. Someone who's davening is alive, excitement, a living thing. What does a living person do? He buys a yayin. That's Kuf Yud. So the Mishnah stated that you are not allowed to use a shul for different uses that are not holy. For example, a shortcut, protect yourself from the rain, and going in there to watch a video, going to make calculations. One of the things it says you're not allowed to do is to make a hesped, a eulogy, mourning, for everyone to come at the shul and to cry. Look at this week's parsha. Why were the Jews stuck in the desert for 40 years? Because the spies came back and they gave a bad report, and the Jews cried the whole night. The problem was that the Jews were crying. They were sad. Come with simcha, come with happiness. Hashem's going to take us into Israel, even though it's so difficult. It doesn't seem there's any natural way of doing it. We can do it because we've gone through much bigger hurdles. Shul is a place where you have simcha, you have joy. Not necessarily a place of crying. I mean, the differences would be if a person cries to do teshuvah, to return to Hashem, or if the crying has a purpose to inspire people to improve, get closer to Hashem. And that's when you have a hesped, a big eulogy for a big Talmid Chacham, a big Torah scholar, as we'll see right now. Says the Gemara, one may offer a eulogy inside of a shul for a Torah scholar. Machvi Rav Chisda showed, what does it mean, a Torah scholar? Kigoin hespeda the kaibe Rav Sheshes. He pointed to Rav Sheshes, Rashi says. Some say he didn't point to Rav Sheshes himself, but he pointed to the idea of someone like Rav Sheshes. And if someone like that passes away, or we'll do it the way Rashi says, if one of his Rav Sheshes' relatives would pass away, and Rav Sheshes would be at the funeral at the Levaya, and Rav Sheshes would get up to speak, so many people would gather together, and if you're doing it indoors, you need a big place like a shul. And Rav Chisda was trying to honor Rav Sheshes, that because Rav Sheshes would be at this funeral, so many people would come there. Rav Sheshes, Machvi Rav Sheshes, going to spade the koy Rav Chisda. Rav Sheshes did the opposite. He points to him, he points to him. Rav Sheshes pointed to Rav Chisda, and he says a type of funeral where Rav Chisda would be, and everyone will come to this funeral because Rav Chisda is there. Now, in general, a person should not be poseach pele satan. He shouldn't say something negative about themselves. It says about Rachel, she passed away after Yaakov Avinu said, whoever stole the idols from Lavan should die. He didn't know his wife Rachel stole them from Lavan, his father-in-law. And she ended up passing away. A person should never say something negative. So how could Rav Sheshes point to Rav Chisda, Rav Chisda point to Rav Sheshes, if one of his relatives would pass away, that would be a eulogy where many people would come to the shul. Like we're going to see soon in the Gemara, Rafram eulogized his daughter-in-law. Many people came because of Rafram. So I brought up the Gemara here in Mesechta Gittin, Daf Nun Zayin and Mebez. It says, "Elecha haragnu kol hayom." It says in Tehillim, because of you, we were killed all the time. And the sages say, this is a brit milah. We were killed for your sake, Hashem. This is by a bris milah. What does it mean, a bris milah? Because when a person has a child has a bris milah, then they're bleeding, and that means when a person bleeds, it's like they passed away. I read from a Holocaust survivor who was actually Mohel, and he was for a long time he was hiding undercover as a non-Jew in the city of Pittsburgh, Bratislava, and he had another shot in this pasuk. We were killed the whole day because of bris milah, because of the bris. It says when the Nazis wanted to, they would stop someone and they wanted to suspicion that they're Jewish, they would check if they had a bris milah or not, and if they did, then they would be very not nice to that Jewish person. So in that schus. So says Reb Shimon, says Reish Lakish, what does it mean? These are Torah scholars. Mr. Native, thank you for joining. Torah scholar who wants to demonstrate the halacha of shechita, and he demonstrates it on themselves, on their own body. Now, although it's not nice, you're not supposed to demonstrate anything on your own body. Here it says because you might be injured. But in general, you shouldn't demonstrate anything negative on a person. Don't say anything negative on a specific person. But if you're learning halacha, then it's okay. Because shomer mitzvah liyeded avera, whoever learns is doing a mitzvah will not have anything negative. So the negative energy which happens when a person says something explicitly negative about a person will not take place if it's there to learn halacha. Ben Ish Chai says it's simple, meaning they're talking about a past. They were talking perhaps about a recent funeral, a recent levaya. Machi means a hint, meaning he didn't say it about Rav Chisda, meaning he said it about something that happened in the not too long past. So now that we established the only time you're allowed to have a eulogy inside of a shul is if it's for a large crowd, which could fit in the shul, and then it's honor of the Torah, honor of the Jewish people. Rafravam, and the Gemara will bring another anecdote. Rafram was also one of the great Amirayim. Aspeda lekalase bebeknishta, his daughter-in-law passed away, and he made the eulogy inside of the shul. Amar, he says, Mishum yikra didi udemisu olekule ama. We are allowed to hold this eulogy inside of a shul because if it's for my honor, people are coming because of Rafram, and therefore we need to do it to a shul. And if it's honor of the person who passed away, then everybody's coming to honor them as well. We see over here that eulogies are not just limited to men, it's also to women as well. Even someone who's not related to you. You know, of course, the very first eulogy in the Torah, the first time it says the word hesped, eulogy in the Torah, is by Avram. He came and he lifka l'sara v'lifkoisa, to cry for Sarah. He made a eulogy for Sarah. So that we definitely see Avram lisped l'sara, to make a eulogy for Sarah, but that's his wife. Even someone who's not an actual relative, like a daughter-in-law, Rafram was able to eulogize her in public. So you don't say that there's halachas that you worried about the laws of tznius when someone is, even if they're not related to you. You're allowed to eulogize someone who's not actual your family. So therefore, Rafram says, so whether it's for my honor or my daughter-in-law's honor, everybody's going to come to the shul, and therefore it's considered to be a hesped shel rabim, a eulogy of the large crowd, which you could do in a shul as well. Continues the Gemara. We're going to talk about different types of eulogizations, and we're going to talk about the greatness of the place, which is not just on our minds, but the whole world's minds, who, even though there's so many other problems in the world, they focus on Eretz Yisrael. We'll talk about the greatness of Eretz Yisrael. Reish Lakish, Safte Lahud Surba the Rabbanan, the great Reish Lakish, we learned a lot about him, was a Torah scholar, a bandit, and a Torah scholar, married to the sister of Rebbe Yochanan. And there was a certain young Torah scholar who would travel very frequently to Eretz Yisrael, but he lived in Bavel, which would be in southern Iraq. Davitani Ilchasa. He would teach Torah, but he wasn't just a Torah scholar, but he was also a great teacher. He had 24 rows of benches of students, or then they weren't really benches, they would sit on the ground, and the teacher would sit on a stool. So 24 rows of students would be sitting in front of him to learn Torah. Rashba says this Torah scholar only had 24 rows of students by his actual funeral, but he had many, many students. Amar, and he says, this is the eulogy that Reish Lakish said in the shul. Vai, alas, chasra ara di Yisrael gavra rabba. The land of Israel has lost a great man. What's so unique saying about the land of Israel lost a great man? So we're going to see that when it came to Eretz Yisrael, I guess those who lived in Eretz Yisrael, they would need a lot of encouragement to push in order to learn Torah. In general, in Eretz Yisrael at that time was under the Roman influence, the Roman sphere. There's a lot of persecution going on in Eretz Yisrael. The Talmud Yerushalmi is not nearly as explained as the Talmud Bavli, does not have as much length and does not have as much explanation. So in Eretz Yisrael, in order to encourage people to learn Torah, you needed a lot of positive reinforcement. Beautiful, how great you are. In Bavel was a place of, it was under the Persian, it was under the, not the Romans, not sure exactly what was under, but over there in Bavel, the Jews were able to live more in peace. There weren't persecutions going on from the Romans, and the Talmud, the Bavli, was able to be thoroughly baked and kneaded and written. And in Bavel, they would not be giving as much praise to Torah scholars as in Eretz Yisrael. So in Eretz Yisrael, someone who learned Mishnayos, Hilchasa, Halacha, but we've had before earlier that just a little bit previously up the page, that Hilchasa meant Mishnayos. However, in Eretz Yisrael, Davatani, Hilchasa, there was a certain person who was a very big Torah scholar. He learned Halacha, Sifra, Sifri, V'tesefta. Sifra, Sifri are all the Midrashim on the Chumash. Tesefta is all the Brises, which did not make it into the Gemara or to the Mishnah or to the... These are all the extra Brises. And he was a very big Torah scholar. However, he was not, Rashi adds, he was not a Mishamish Talmidei Chachamim. He was not someone who would spend time helping, serving Torah scholars in order to receive the attitude of Torah, and as opposed to more as a person who learned very much but by himself. Veshachiv, and this person passed away. Asu v'amru Rav Nachman, they came to Rav Nachman and they told him, this person passed away, and lis b'deimar, let Rav Nachman say a eulogy for him. And Amar, Rav Nachman says, Heichi nispedei, how could I say a eulogy for such a person? I can't give a eulogy for such a person because should I say that we had a whole, they call it the sack. Again, people didn't have fancy bookshelves like we have all over. They had parchments and they would be in a sack usually. That's how they're carried around. So should I say that we had a tremendous, say, a svarim shank, a bookshelf of svarim, which you would call it a sack full of svarim. And now this person passed away, now we're missing it. I can't say that about him, although he learned a lot, but he never spent time helping, serving, being, and spending time to trying to understand the depths and the reasons of the Mishnah, and therefore, I can't say anything positive about him. There are many times that the Mishnah, two Mishnahs in two different places are contradicting each other. Like, for example, you'll see very soon in the Gemara, we just had before also, we had Chesuri Mechsura. This particular Mishnah in this place was missing a few words, or Hachav Mayaskina, or the Mishnah speaking only about specific cases. And since this person did not spend enough time with the Torah scholars, So he knew the Mishnah, but he didn't know the applications and the reasonings behind the Mishnah. And therefore, I cannot give a proper eulogy for him. If you look at the terminology of Rish Lakish's eulogy, he says, Vai, alas, Chasra Arad Yisrael, Gavra Rabba, the land of Israel has lost a great man, about a person who just learned Mishnah. Chassam Sofer says that in Eretz Yisrael, the land of Israel, is Ein Torah Eretz Yisrael. Is nowhere, no Torah is as great as the land of Eretz Yisrael. Look, even today, go to Eretz Yisrael, look at any Dirshu program, learning Gemara, look at many of these programs. The land of Israel, Eretz Yisrael, you have tens of thousands of people. In America, you'll have several thousand people. The diligence in learning Torah is much greater. Till today, you see it clearly in Eretz Yisrael. Now, Rish Lakish, he eulogized a student who just knew only a young Torah scholar who knew only halacha or Mishnah. Rav Nachman would not eulogize someone, even somebody who knew a lot. What's the difference between these two? The big difference is one is in Eretz Yisrael, one is in the land of Israel, and one is in Bavel. Look over here in the Gemara, a very interesting Gemara. Ksubas Ayin Heyam and base. And obviously, I will just bring an example in a moment, how someone took this Gemara very out of context. Our sages say, to Tzion, meaning to Eretz Yisrael, it says, every man who were born in her, the Most High shall be established in her. Right? It says there, somebody who's born over there, and somebody who wants to go to Eretz Yisrael, all those people are considered equally sons of Eretz Yisrael. You don't actually have to live in Israel. But if Livi b'Mizrach, if your heart is in Eretz Yisrael, you're already considered to be someone from Eretz Yisrael. Says Abaya, one Torah scholar is superior to two of us, two Torah scholars outside of Eretz Yisrael. Rabbi Yirmiyah, buried in Tveria, middle of the street in Tveria. Rabbi Yirmiyah, when he was first living in Bavel, he wasn't able to be on the level to understand what the sages in Bavel were saying. When he went to Eretz Yisrael, he called the Babylonians foolish, meaning coming to Eretz Yisrael, he became wiser. The Avira, the Eretz Yisrael machkim. The ear, the land of Eretz Yisrael, makes one wiser in Torah. So the schus and merit that somebody went into Eretz Yisrael, traveled to Eretz Yisrael, is greater. So you had a Torah scholar who went constantly to Eretz Yisrael, right? A man, the shliach bar Yisrael, Torah scholar, who constantly go to Eretz Yisrael. So this Torah scholar was now special, meaning he was greater than even someone outside of Eretz Yisrael. The fact that he went to Eretz Yisrael, the Holy Land, is what caused him to become so great. And that's why Rish Lakish said this eulogy in Aramaic, even though he lived in Eretz Yisrael, because he wanted to bring out the point that it was a fact that this man came from Bavel is what made him so great now when he came to Eretz Yisrael. Just not to take it out of context. The greatness of Eretz Yisrael, Eretz Yisrael Machkim, is if you're connected to the Kedusha, the holiness of the land. There was a certain very famous Zionist leader, first Prime Minister of Israel, and he said such a thing that one cow in Palestine is worth more than all the Jews of Poland. Obviously, that's not true. First, nothing is worth more than anybody else, and no life is worth more than another life. Every Jew is important. And definitely a cow in Palestine, in Israel, is not more important than the Jews in Poland trying to, saying that we should focus on building Israel as opposed to saving the Jews in Europe. It's absolutely correct, not correct. The whole idea that one in Eretz Yisrael, one Torah scholar is worth two outside of Israel, outside of Eretz Yisrael, is of course when those who are learning Torah scholars, those who are connecting themselves to the Kedusha, the holiness of the land. Because we want Eretz Yisrael not because it's geographically in a good location, not because we happened, to many people came there, but rather because this is a land which Hashem promised to the Jewish people. It's the land that Hashem gave to us, and that's to connect ourselves to the Kedusha, the holiness of the land of Eretz Yisrael. Do one more part. Tana. Tachazi. The Gemara now compares the conduct of Rish Lakish and Eretz Yisrael, who eulogized a Torah scholar as a very great person. The land of Israel had a tremendous loss. Eretz Yisrael had a tremendous loss because this one Torah scholar passed away. And in Bavel, with this person who learned a lot, Rav Nachman would not eulogize him because he says he could say it the way it is. He didn't do good enough. Tachazi, come in here, come and see. Ma beit hakife de aradi Israel lechasidei de Bavel. Between the powerhouses, takif means someone who's strong. Rish Lakish was a takif. Rish Lakish was he said it the way it was. It says in Mesechta Yuma that Rish Lakish wouldn't speak to any regular person. Rish Lakish was very careful who he would talk to. And he's called a takif, someone who we could say was not someone who was trying to find a diplomatic way of saying everything. He said things the way they are. If you remember what we learned in Mesechta Tainis, it says that people in Bavel were known to be very pious, and people in Eretz Yisrael were known to be very, say Mesiras Nefesh, very blunt, very strong. Again, of course, people in Eretz Yisrael, they were Chassidim as well, but this is what stuck out with them more than the people in Bavel. So therefore, the people in Eretz Yisrael, someone like Rish Lakish, although they're very strong and powerful, when a Torah scholar passed away, he would say, whoa, such a person. Eretz Yisrael has lost so much Torah, even though it was a visiting Torah scholar. He would say, whoa, such a person has lost Eretz Yisrael, Eretz Yisrael has lost such a gem, like Hasidei de Bavel, the saintly ones, the pious ones in Bavel. Rav Nachman was a chassid. Of course he's a chassid. How do you know he's a chassid? As many of us who have learned Mesechta Saita over the course of Sfiras HaOmer, what is the very last words of the entire Mesechta Saita? I can see I'm in the 9 days. What are the very, very last words of the entire Mesechta Saita? It goes through when Rebbe passed away, there's no more humility, no more fear of sin. Rav Yosef says, I am humble, there's still humility. There's explanations on that. Reb Nachman says, don't say there's no more fear of sin. For I am around. I am still here. Reb Nachman was someone who had a tremendous yiras chet, fear of sin. Famous story of Reb Nachman. He was the one who introduced the invention called the yarmulke. It's a yarmulke they wear the entire time. Of course, they used to wear a yarmulke when they daven. They used to wrap their heads when they learn Torah. But that it should be for everybody all the time, that's Rav Nachman introduced. Right? The astrologer said when Rav Nachman was born that he's going to be a thief. And his mother always made sure he constantly wore a yarmulke from when he was born. They should always have a yarmulke as a yireh. Remind yourself the fear of Hashem constantly. And he always wore it. And Baruch Hashem, he grew up to become Rav Nachman, a tremendous Torah scholar. One time he was teaching his students under a tree that belonged to somebody else, in Charuvim, selling carobs, which are not a very appetizing fruit. And his head covering fell off, and Rav Nachman got an immediate urge to steal so much that he jumped up and with his teeth, he pulled off a carob from the tree. So Rav Nachman always wore a yarmulke to remind him about Yiras Elakim, to fear Hashem, Yiras Chet, to fear sin. So Rav Nachman, he was a Yiras Chet. Anybody's a chassid. Chassid means a pious one. It's interesting. It was in the opponents of Chassidim who called them, who gave the title Chassidim to Chassidim as pious ones. Because you have to be so pious, you always have to do this, do that. But in halacha, a chassid means someone who goes above the letter of the law. Halacha says you could do just A, B, and C, and it's enough. And we do much, much more. So the chassidei, the saintly ones, or the pious ones, in Bavel, Rav Nachman, which was a chassid, as we just saw in the Saita, and although Rav Nachman was a very pious person, he did not eulogize, say a hesped about a person who, although was a very learned, but did not spend time with the Torah scholars to learn properly. Why did Rav Nachman? Why did Reish Lakish not want to? Why did Rav Nachman not want to eulogize this particular person? So that's a point of discussion, a point of contention. But in short, that this person had a potential and did not fulfill it. And being a chassid, being who he was, he did not want to give credence to such a thing. That people shall learn from him. The other thing is, and this is brought by one of the more recent Achronim, is that there's a very big difference between these two. Look at the big difference between these two. One person was not so scholarly, but look what he did. He taught Tani Hilchasa Be'esmer Abba Shurta. He knew Aleph, he taught Aleph. He went out and he was teaching to others. Teaching. Although he could say to himself, who am I to teach? All I know is halacha, all I know is Mishnah. I don't know so much. There's greater people out there. There's smarter people out there. Still, he didn't hold himself back. And if he had an opportunity to teach, anybody who would be willing to listen, he taught. I'll teach you everything I know. For 24 rows of students, that's a lot of students. Hashem must have given him an ability to teach. Such a person is worthy of being called the Gavra Rabba, a great man. He might not have been the greatest Torah scholar, but he was a great Torah teacher, tremendous teacher of Torah, and one who constantly taught and did everything they could. And they didn't wait till they're being called upon. They didn't wait to. He's such a person, which Reish Lakish, who himself was a very strong personality, very demanding personality, Reish Lakish himself called him a Gavra Rabba. Why is he a great man? Because he had 24 rows of Talmidim. This other person, Rav Nachman, who himself is a chassid, Rav Nachman is a pious person. Rav Nachman says this other person might have learned a lot, but he was a sack of Svarim, but I can't even call him a sack of Svarim because he never went further. He didn't spend time with the Torah scholars, and he also didn't spend time teaching.
But where do we see in the Gemara that he says he sat in the back? He was in the 24th row of the study hall.
No, it says the Havitani. He would teach 24 rows. Oh, it says he would teach halacha in the 24th row. That's Rashi over here says that he would teach 24 rows of Talmidim. That's going according to Rashi. See the translation here. If you look at Rashi over here, let me bring it up over here. Is it
interesting how the translation is a point for Ket? You know what I mean? He sat in the back because he wasn't a scholar.
Correct. Uh-huh.
לא אמר,
I hear you. Uh-huh. Interesting. Okay, so this is just one Peter I saw. Yeah, sure. So the Ran, right? That's right. When, I could go through all the different Pirushim here. There's a Marsha, there's a Ran, there's a Rashba. Marsha says that he sat in the 24th row. The Ran says that he taught 24 rows. Um, right. So according to the Marsha, he said that he eulogized him in front of all 24 rows, but he was sat in the last row. The Ran and the Rashba, they both say that he would be teaching to others. He would be teaching the Mishnah and he would be teaching the Gemara. Uh-huh. Interesting. So there are two different Pirushim here. So that's the Rashi over here. It's not Rashi, but it's what it's a Pirush. Rashi. So one good thing about this website that you showed me is that you're able to literally put together your own sefer, your own Gemara, your own I say the own Mikros Gdolos, many Pirushim. Right? He would teach Shayshaynim Mishnayos. You Rashi over here. Rahavatani Yochase would teach Mishnayos, Shayshaynim Mishnayos to Talmidim. He would teach Mishnayos to the students. The Chav Dalet Shuris in 24 rows of Talmidim. Right? That's Rashi. So I was explaining here according to Rashi. You look at the Marsha. The Marsha over here. No. Here it is. El Davish, right here it says, Nira, all this just in order to show how great it is. Yoshev, he would sit in 24th row, that he would sit, Mashman sitting in the 24th row. Anyways, so I guess we have Baruch Hashem, we have different Pirushim in the same thing, and Shivim Panam Torah, but according to, I guess, the way that it was translated over here, it's a much bigger chiddush. It's a much bigger. It's a much bigger chiddush. Even if he was sitting in the 24th row, he still eulogized him. And that's, of course, a much greater chiddush. Okay, Yeshikoya, thank you for joining. Tomorrow, Mr. Shem will be back.